Good evening and welcome to the Ombudsman program. My name is Diane Welborn. I am the Ombudsman and I'll be your host for this evening's program. I'm pleased to announce that tonight I'm going to have a conversation with Mayor Nan Whaley. And I want to remind our viewers that while we're having a conversation, that they can join the conversation by calling in and asking questions. So we'll go ahead and begin. Mayor, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I appreciate your coming. It's lovely to have you on the program. I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit more about how your background brought you to being the mayor of the city of Dayton. What kind of led up and shaped you to bring you where you are now?
Well, you know, I've been on the City Commission for 8 years and was elected on the City Commission in 2005. So I'd served 8 years on the commission and really have enjoyed my time. This is now my 9th year serving as a mayor. You serve on the commission as well and really have enjoyed it. I actually am not from Dayton. I'm from Indiana. Went to the University of Dayton and really fell in love with the city. I love the determination that this community has and its willingness to roll up its sleeves, you know, and get dirty to try to make sure that we can have a great community. And that's really what I fell in love with. It was really earnest and it's really willing to have new people come in and be very welcoming, and so you know I've always felt at home here and made the city my home. So the past 8 years have been great, and decided to run for mayor in I think December 4th, 2012, right after the presidential election. Mostly because my fellow colleagues endorsed me and supported me in that effort. When I ran for mayor, I was the most junior of the commission, both in age and my time on commission, but they all felt that I should run and felt that I could do a good job on it. And you know, it means a lot when your peers and colleagues think that that you should do it, and especially in elected bodies, I think that says a lot about my colleagues. You know, most of the time when you put your name on the ballot, it takes a bit of ego to do that, and that the guys, you know, they're all men, so I affectionately call them the guys. The guys were so without ego that they thought that I could do that. I think really spoke a lot to them. So so ran for mayor and won.
That's great. Well, I know that many in our community are working hard to try to get other students who come to UD to stay here and join our community on a more permanent basis. So I hope they're all successful at that, since that's how you got here. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your educational background.
So I have an undergrad from the University of Dayton, actually in chemistry.
All right.
And I liked chemistry just fine, but actually never ended up using it. And so a lot of times when we're talking to, you know, students nowadays, they say, well, you know, it's sometimes, you know, life unfolds in interesting ways. And so I had a chemistry degree, but really got involved in government after graduation and politics, and worked on campaigns, and actually was a member of the Board of Elections for the county. It's probably the youngest Board of Elections member. There's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans that run the elections. Probably the youngest one in the state at the time, if not ever. I think I was like maybe 22, 23.
Very young.
And, yeah, very young. And then when I decided when Carl Keith became county auditor, he called and asked me to join his team, and really learned a lot about local government through that, and did that for about 5 years. And one of the points I like to make to folks over and over again is, you know, I'm only the 6th female ever to serve on the City Commission, which is a pretty low number. And in general, women aren't really represented in elected office. And after I was elected mayor, I looked up and I had no idea, you know, you're running for mayor, you're thinking about Dayton, and the Dayton Daily News actually wrote a story where I'm one of 28 women in the top 200 cities that are mayor. And so it's like 14%, which is actually less than Congress, less than the United States Senate of women participatories. And so, you know, the reason why I ran for office in the first place is because someone asked, and so I always try to remind that we need to ask women to run, because we do have a different voice and we provide a really different perspective, I think, and to make sure that that has representation in both local, state, and national politics is really important.
I think that is very, very important as well. Mm-hmm. We want to encourage people. And I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that, about recruiting future public servants. But
Right.
when you first came to the City Commission, what about its operations kind of surprised you the most? I mean, when you were first elected, I mean,
Yeah.
the things that, you know, in all of us when we begin a new job, so to speak, you know, there are things like, oh, so what kind of moments or what kind of policies kind of surprised you about the way the city worked that you might not have been exactly prepared for or known about?
Well, you know, I came from the county, and the county is statutory through the state. And so the county does things that the state tells it to do. And so when you get to the city is really where the rubber meets the road, even more than county government. And so there are a couple things that surprised me. The first one was how fast it moved compared to the county, where it's statutory and you have a cycle and you do this at each time because state government says it. The city, if the city commissioners decide to do something within a month, it can be a new policy and it moves forward. And so I was a little surprised in adjusting to that, just because you have such autonomy in some ways. Now I'd wish it could move faster, right? Because you've done it for that long, you're like, this should go quicker. But that was surprising to me, just from county to city government. And then the whole form of government for Dayton is, you know, a city manager form of government where, you know, you have the 4 commissioners and the mayor directing the manager. And so while that is a small group of people, like having 3 people to agree and then move forward wasn't interesting. And so just you know, I was 29 when I was elected, so team building and understanding, you know, building trust of your colleagues, I think was something that was a great lesson for me that I did in a pretty public way. So, you know, if you're elected, you do it in public. So, right. So that was, I think, something new for me. And, you know, the other thing that was just really great about the City Commission is we might not all agree. I mean, a lot of times we disagree, frankly. But the respect among my colleagues, I think, has been pretty impressive. And when I look at other cities and see some of the fights that they have or the disagreements and how really not really nice they are, I really am grateful for Dayton and my colleagues in that effort.
Yeah, it's much more of a collegial environment than what some could be.
Right.
You mentioned when we were speaking a bit before the program about, you know, mayor's school or mayor's training. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where do people go once they're elected. It's like, okay, now where do I go?
Well, you know, I think they take better care of mayors than they do in the commission. When I was elected to the City Commission, it was just like, okay, now you're on the seat, you know, learn it. And the mayor, when I was elected mayor, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which is a great organization I've been active in, emailed me back in October, and I'm assuming they did my opponent as well, and said, now if you win, we want you to hold this week in December off. We're going to, you know, take you to Cambridge, to Harvard, and we have, I call it New Mayor's School. I think they called it something more formal. Yes. And there was 28 of us there, 28 mayors from across the country, where you know, really talked about, you know, the nuts and bolts of things that you need to think about when it comes to leadership and leading as mayor. And I think it was, first of all, it was fantastic because the mayor of Pittsburgh, the mayor of Seattle, the mayor of Asheville, North Carolina, a lot of us became friends and like even text each other and check in on each other right now today. The mayor of Toledo was new, he was there, and we talk a lot. And so that was great. So you have a camaraderie of new mayors, which is, you know, just nice because it's not like you have some of the smaller mayors like from our neighboring communities, right. But the core population communities that they had there where they're center cities, that's a different kind of role that only like a couple hundred of us have in the country. And so it's great to have those relationships. And then, you know, had some of the best speakers I've seen in a long time about, you know, what's the role of regional transportation and where are we going as communities building urban centers and how do we build strong cores and those kind of things that, you know, are just great questions that you can really talk with and open. It was really just a great experience in December.
Well, that's really good, and I'm glad that training is provided by the Council of Mayors, and
yeah.
glad everyone needs to be able to speak to their peers
right.
occasionally
right.
about issues. That's how we network and learn. So
right.
that's
and
great.
My understanding is they do on the odd years in December, they do the mayors, and then on the even years they do new congressmen. Okay. And they did admit that the mayors are more friendly than the congressmen. So, I mean, it's just so much more partisan, I think, right. in Congress. So having, like, immediately the Democrats and Republicans, they were saying when they have the new congressional training, immediately split up. And that doesn't happen to the mayors. The mayors are mayors, and, you know,
that's good.
They're just kind of all kind of hodgepodge together.
That's great.
Which is cool.
That's great. Well, along with all of the educational background and your work at the county, were there did you have mentors that you turned to along this process, and what kinds of things did? I mean, you don't have to name them, but
I can happily name them.
Yeah, well, then do so if you wish. But it's like I'm interested in how you were advised as you moved from Board of Elections through the county and then to actually run for the city commission.
Yeah. So what happened to me was, I'm not from here, and in 1999 I graduated UD at 98. In 99 I was active in politics, and I got an offer to go move to DC. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this happens with many people, but I knew that this was going to be a clear choice on, if I go to DC, I'm never really coming back to Dayton because none of my family's here. And it was a nice job opportunity. And I remember talking to some of my mentors, and they said, well, you got to do what's right for you. And I just knew that I did not want to leave Dayton. And so I made that decision to stay, and pretty much knew that I was staying in Dayton. Now, I never really thought about running for office. I'd always worked on campaigns and enjoyed seeing seeing that work fulfilled. But, doing this right now, like I did not want to do this right now, right? And so what happened was there's a group called Emily's List, and Emily's List supports pro-choice Democratic women to get them involved, and really works at identifying women across the country to run for office, specifically on congressional races. And so I was 26, and they reached out. I don't know how they got my name from my work, I guess, in politics, and said, you should run for office, and you should run for Congress. Now, that's insane. I mean, I just wanted to point out. But I did, somebody from, this national organization coming to see me made my mentors, like Carl Keith, Michelle Roberts, who's a great friend of mine, and, a lot of just great folks came together, and my family, and said, is this something we'd even consider? And so we decided no, I would never be interested in doing that. But that process made me realize that I did want to run for office, and so I wanted to make a difference in a more vocal way. I wouldn't say more meaningful, because I think the work that people do on politics is just as meaningful, but in a more vocal way. And then also recognizing just how few women take the leap. And so that goes back to my point of women have to be asked, and I'm no exception to that rule. And Mayor Bayless, who's in Xenia, I said, so how did you get involved? She said, well, the former mayor came to see her at her church and said, I think you should be mayor, and she would have never run. And so, again, over and over again, as I hear women's stories and women electeds, they are always asked. And so that is a real difference between women versus men. Men usually say, I'm going to do this, and it's usually, and it's great for them, it's usually something that's really internal to them. But women, because I think the role is new, and we're still, not the norm on these roles, that we do have to be asked to be considered in it.
And it's interesting that you were asked by folks at Emily's List first, that you were spotted, so to say, by a different kind of list.
Right. It wasn't local at all. And then what was interesting, full circle, is that they endorsed me in the mayor's race. And so they didn't, of course, get involved in the commission race at all. But when I ran for mayor, I was the first person in the state. They've endorsed other mayor candidates, but I was one of the first that they endorsed. And so I think 8 of us across the country won. And so that's kind of, to me, that's special. That this is the group that started and even considered me to run for city commission, and then to endorse me for mayor was pretty cool.
That's great. I think that is too. Why don't you tell our viewers something about your thought process in choosing and selecting the 2 real big priority areas that you've chosen to helping businesses to thrive, and then helping to improve the quality of our local education. Those, if I have that right, those seem to be the 2 major initiatives. And I'm curious as to how did you come to pick these 2 issues to focus on?
Sure. Well, I think they're first really connected, and so that was one of the reasons why. When I was running for office, and what I see across the city as commissioner and today as mayor, is we really have across the region, this is a regional issue, but Dayton plays a key part in it, is our folks, we haven't had much job creation at all. If you look at 2009 in the metro area, the 3-county area, the job numbers are the same today as they were 4 years ago. And so that's painful, right?
Yes,
so, it's, from the end of the recession, really, the bust happened in 2008, 2009, so we're still at that bottom level. Now, we haven't lost any more, but we need to start gaining jobs. And so that's something I think that's really key coming out of the recession, that we just have to really leverage and be a part of the discussion regionally. And so, we're seeing some really good signs already. We see CareSource announcing job growth in downtown Dayton. We see the P&G site, which is right near the Dayton airport, being grown for like 1,100 jobs for logistics. We see the FUIO plant right in Moraine from GM Truck and Bus. So I'm hoping next year at this time, Diane, when we talk, that it will be we've seen job growth for the region, because the city is intricately connected to that, and the mayor's position, I think, has to pay attention to that. And it's been really telling to me. When I was commissioner, most businesses didn't want to pay attention at all, but now you're the mayor, and they do want to meet with the mayor. And so I've met with over 60 business owners or CEOs since I've been elected, really just trying to make the connection, and that they have somebody they can reach out to in the mayor's office and in the city of Dayton, and been received really well. And what does it mean to be business friendly? How can the city be more business friendly? It can be anything from, of course, there's discussions about tax incentives, but most of the time it's about quality services, making sure that we plow when their trucks are trying to get out, because we're still manufacturing is still a key part of our community, or creating placemaking in downtown and making sure that there's a density in downtown where a lot of our jobs are and job growth can be. So that's, I think, been really important. I felt it was something that was really lacking from the mayor's office in previous years, and so they've been really supportive. And I also recognize that I have a role regionally to play in that role as mayor of Dayton, because we are the center of the region, and so we need to celebrate when there's job growth across the region as well, like the FUIO plant in Moraine. So that's the reason why job growth is key for both short-term and long-term. When I was sworn in January, I talked about making Dayton a city of learners, and so we've been listening to the community on that effort. We recognize that by 2018, which is just 4 short years away, 2 out of 3 jobs in the country will require some sort of bachelor, associate's degree, or credential. 2 out of 3 jobs. And so all regions are on a huge track to try to attract this kind of and step their workforce up. Right now in Montgomery County, about 41% of our students that graduate 6 years later, we look back 6 years, we're at 41% in the county that are receiving some associates or bachelors. In the city of Dayton, we're at 19%. So I look at that as leaving a lot of talent on the table. And the only school district that is reaching 2 out of 3 is Oakwood City Schools. So it's not like Dayton is alone in this effort. We have a long way to go for sure, but all of our school districts in the county are having challenges in this. And I think that when you talk about bringing jobs into a community, the first thing, and I hear it over and over again when we talk to folks, is about the workforce. And so our workforce is not aligned to the jobs of even 4 years from now, so that's really the jobs of today. And so we have a lot of work to do when it comes to making sure that our kids can fill those jobs, and if we want to grow our economy. So I look at the education as the long-term economic development engine for our community, and as mayor, we should pay attention to that. And I think I'm the first mayor in the city to ever say this needs to happen, but I think that the community has to play a role in educating our kids as well, and it's just not the school district or the charters or the private schools. It's all of us that have work to do on this.
Right. Oh, good. Well, thank you very much for that background. You are a member of the Dayton Manufacturing Task Force. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what is their work and what has been your role with them?
Sure. So about 3 years ago, when I was on the commission, specifically during the recession, I heard, and I think through the pain of the Delphi closings, because we were second per capita behind Kokomo, Indiana, and the number of people working at Delphi.
Yes.
We heard, manufacturing is dead. I'd hear this throughout the community, and I began to really get worried about it, because what Dayton does well is we make things, and whether it's the innovation from the factory line of making things, or the innovation of that technology, that also breeds more patents, more innovation from there. So I worked with the Dayton Regional Manufacturers Association to really convene a table with DRMA, Dayton Regional Manufacturers Association, Sinclair Community College, the local AFL-CIO, Dayton Development Coalition, to bring everybody to the table. And we're really focused around two efforts: workforce, which goes back to City of Learners again, and advocacy, both inside the region and outside the region. Because 18% of the region's gross domestic product is still manufacturing. So while it's not 40%, and I don't ever want it to be 40%, but it's still a good portion of our jobs. And what we also found when talking to manufacturers is they can't find the quality workforce again. And so we do a lot of work on showing high school students that this isn't your father's factory, and it's really clean, and it takes a lot of engineering, and again, they need post-secondary and credentialed skills. So showing that so we can encourage some of our students to go down that route. Because it's a really decent paying job, frankly, and you need to have, it's not just a high school degree anymore, you need an associate's, you need to have that credential. And so we do a lot with workforce, and then just advocating in the community, both, in the community to what I would say moms that don't want, if their fathers had been in manufacturing and they didn't want, they had been laid off or something had happened, of course you wouldn't want your child doing that kind of work. So showing how it is different than what it was inside the region, and then outside the region on the value that we know how to make things in Dayton. And that's really what we're about. Okay,
well, what are some of the next steps for the task force?
Well, we continue to do a couple of programs. First, the first Friday in October is National Manufacturing Day. And so we partner Dayton Public Schools with manufacturing sites, and RTA is gracious enough to provide transportation so the kids can see what a manufacturing site looks like, because it's very clean and very different than your imagination would, think of manufacturing. It's, a lot of robotics, a lot of, that kind of work on the commercialization side. So we're doing that. We did it with one school last year. We're up to 5 schools now. What's interesting about National Manufacturing Day, we don't want to recreate the wheel. So DRMA had found this, and we said, oh, this is great. DRMA can help bring the manufacturers. We can help bring the schools and education. So we kind of fill that gap. We are now the largest National Manufacturing Day in the country. Dayton is.
Oh, good.
So we didn't even start it, but then the Department of Commerce is called and said, "What are you guys doing here?" And I think again, it's our collaborative model that no one owns this. We really work in collaboration with all parts to bring it together. So we do that, and then we do during. DRMA has a trade show up near the airport at the Airport Expo Center, and we do a program that, for example, last year we bring a national speaker and then a local manufacturer and a researcher to talk about the value of manufacturing in the community. And so really trying to attract those thought leaders, because we don't want them saying, we want them to see the value of manufacturing as well. Because if you just do the technology and the invention here, you won't get any of the side products of when you make it here, you get more innovation and more technology comes off of that. So we really want the great things that UDRI is doing, that Wright State Research Institute's doing, that GE Aviation's doing. We want to make those products here, and so connecting that whole streamline in the region is really key for us.
Okay, well that's very exciting then. The other entities that applied for the manufacturing communities partnership, we were chosen. Dayton was chosen, or we're
in waiting.
We're in the waiting, so we aren't announcing that we're chosen because we're in the waiting. When will we know about that? Do you know when?
They say June or July.
Okay.
This is one of the other pieces that I've been working on, is trying to, and I was in Cincinnati today, as I told you, is trying to connect both Cincinnati and Dayton as what I call like an Uber region. We have 2 real cores, but like Dallas and Fort Worth, the Research Triangle, and Raleigh, you have city cores that connect a bigger area. And when we talk about our competition, we're really competing globally these days. And so when you can get from Dayton to Cincinnati in an hour, it's really a place where we know spouses, one are working in Cincinnati, one are working in Dayton. So how do we create cores that are connected and are strong, but then have that connection for, like example, on manufacturing. So they have a new mayor in Cincinnati, Mayor Cranley, and I, as with the Dayton Development Coalition and the Cincinnati Chamber, applied for a partnership grant specifically around aerospace. There'll be 12 cities or communities get designated. Cincinnati-Dayton would be one community. And I think 42 applied, so it's pretty competitive. But we're really excited about just the action of doing it. It's been great for Dayton and Cincinnati and opening those, dialogues and conversations. But I think we have a fair shot at getting one too. So if we do receive the designation, there's a pool of federal money of the tune of $1.2 billion for those 12 communities, so their businesses can retool, do what they need to do on manufacturing. So ours, with aerospace, we're trying to move a lot of our automotive to aerospace, and so that retooling could help with those dollars.
Well, we'll be keeping our fingers crossed
Thank
that comes through for all of us. What kind of activities have you been involved in the downtown area? I mean, in developing and improving downtown, paying attention to downtown.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, one of the great roles of being mayor is being the co-chair of the Downtown Dayton Partnership, and pleased to work with Dr. Mike Irvin, who's the private sector champion for downtown. We recognize that downtown is the core sense of place, and that if things don't go as well in downtown, people perceive the whole region not doing as well. And so that's why the core, I think, in addition to its economic engine, which is about as stronger than Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and number of jobs in the greater downtown area, that sense of place drives how the region feels about itself. So we are doing a lot of work on creating density along with housing and with working to make sure that we reposition some of our older buildings. It's interesting to me when I talk to businesses how different 10 years ago today was, right? So accountants go to people's houses, lawyers don't have to go to the courthouse, so people can choose really to work anywhere. And so we have to work really hard on the value proposition of downtown, and housing is key, because we know if we get feet on the street and create restaurants, which people living in a place actually create more of that vibrancy than someone just working, that will help breed more jobs there too. We're excited about the River Run project, which will be next year, where we're doing kayaking right downtown. It's getting people, the next phase of Riverscape, getting people in the river. So we're excited about that project. We announced Bike Share in February, so next year we'll be doing Bike Share, which is 20 stations from the University of Dayton, north to Dayton Art Institute, east to St. Anne's, and west to Wright Dunbar. 20 stations in that 4.2-mile area where we will have people being able to bike and put their bikes and just pay and not have to worry about it. So we're really excited about that. And then we're excited about the Water Street project that's on Monument in Patterson. It's about, an office building, a garage, and right now they've decided 191 market rate apartments, as we're at 95% occupancy rate in downtown with housing.
Well, that's a lot going on in downtown. It'd be interesting, and with this being, isn't this Bike Month or something?
It is. Next Friday, you can bike to work.
Okay. Yes, that's
very
great.
exciting.
So when do we think the Bike Share is going to be up and going?
Next spring.
Next spring. Okay, so we'll look for that for next year's bike. Next, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dayton's selection with the U.S. Department of Education and the National League of Cities Education Project. You touched on it with City of Learners, but let's come back and talk a lot more about that now. Can you tell us about your City of Learners initiative for any viewers that may not have heard about it or participated?
Great. So when we declared that what Dayton should be, we've had, at the end of my swearing-in speech, we talked about how Dayton's been known as the Gem City, the City of Neighbors, this center of aviation and aerospace. And so we said, what would be great is if the City of Dayton was known as the City of Learners. And what we found is that really captured the imagination of folks. And so it's been a great experience so far. So what we decided to do is there's a committee of around 60 people. We started at like 45, but people kept on asking to join. Business leaders, faith leaders, the whole Dayton School Board, charter school leaders, private school leaders that come together to really listen to the community. We've had 12 sessions across the city, partnering, for example, with Dayton Public Schools at one, charter school, Dayton Leadership Academy, or CJ held one downtown. Pre-K, we held one for pre-K specifically. And the immigrant community with Welcome Dayton so we could really listen to different parts of the community and hear what their perceptions are and what they think they need to make sure that we grow and do better with education. So those 12, we just wrapped them up last Thursday. was the last one up at Fairview United Church on Fairview Avenue. And what we'll be doing next is we've had 2 meetings with the City of Learners Committee, the first one in March, second one in the midpoint around April, mid to late April. We'll have another meeting June 2nd where we'll have a rough draft of report of what we've heard and then the actions we think and initiatives we think we need to move on. And then over the summer, we'll work on fleshing that out, and then in the fall, when school starts, we'll kick off the initiatives.
We will come back to that, but I'm being told that we have a caller
Great.
on the line. So, caller, we'd like to hear your question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is a great show, and it's wonderful to have a new mayor with a vision for the city. Thank you. I'm calling to ask about attracting young people to Dayton. I'm so impressed with the development all the way up Brown Street near the University of Dayton. And as I drive through the downtown, I keep looking at these wonderful old buildings, some of which young people have told me they think are really cool. And I'm just wondering, what can the city do to enable young people to get into those buildings so that they can do the kind of arts and crafts, woodwork, jewelry, the kind of artisan stuff that young people like to do now?
Great, well, thanks.
Thank you for the question. We'll get you an answer.
So thanks for your nice call and nice comments about the Brown Street area. We have done a program called Pop-Up Spaces and Activated Spaces in downtown, which actually has gotten national recognition, where folks like So Dayton, for example, or Peace on Fifth, where they've had the opportunity to get retail space for the first 90 days really, really inexpensively in partnership with our building owners. And that has allowed us to have some of that more creative space in downtown. And it's gone really well. Last year was the first year that we actually saw an increase in retail in downtown for like 30 years. Wow. So we're seeing that, and actually the spaces now, we have found that we're nearly full of the building owners that are willing to work with the city on this effort. Now, I know people drive through and say, well, this is an empty building and that's an empty building, and we don't own these buildings, and so we have to really work with building owners to do that. I think the other key just to kind of expound on his question with the UD area, really some of the work that we want to do too is work to connect UD to the core downtown. We think of this in the Greater Downtown Plan. They're both in the Greater Downtown Plan, but you'll see the work that we've done on Warren Street to really light Brown to Warren into Dayton, and then also into downtown, and then building bike lanes that connect all the way to the river. And you see the work, from the Goodwill Easter Sills and Coco's and Marvin Gardens, which was redone. You can see that connection starting to happen. So K-12 at SMV, where SMV was, you can see this vibrancy starting to lift right into the core. But we are looking at some of the empty buildings on what opportunities do they have, specifically on retail on the first floor and housing and other opportunities, because we know that the architectural significance of some of these buildings are what make downtown unique and make it different than any other place in the region, and that's what we think we need to really leverage. And we have opportunities with state and federal historic tax credits, new market tax credits, and some tools to do that work. But we know that we can't do it alone, and the public sector is not able in any city to do this without the private sector's investment. And so as I was in Cincinnati today, when they talk about, how did they get Over the Rhine done and how they got Fountain Square done, they got it with a public-private partnership. And so we're going to, be in the process of really asking the private sector to step up, because if we really want to have a strong core, we need the region to say we need to have a strong core. Of course, the mayor of Dayton wants a strong core. Of course, the city commission and the people in the city of Dayton, but the region needs to say that they want a strong core as well.
Okay, so if there are building owners that in hearing this think, oh, well, maybe I could have a pop-up shop, they should just call your office to get started on talking about that with somebody on staff there. Huh?
Absolutely. If they call my office at 333-3653, we'll definitely put them in touch with the person at the partnership that rolls that program.
Good. That's just great. And then back to the City of Learners initiative. I realize it's a work in progress right now, so you're not ready to say what action steps or what strategies are going to be taking place. But I'm interested in your kind of preliminary evaluation of the process that was used. I mean, you did hold the listening discussions with trained facilitators in many different sites, and
I saw you at a couple, Diane.
Yes, and citizens then came and commented. And are you pretty pleased with the response of people to come and with the quality of the information that you received from there? Did the process kind of give you what you had hoped for?
Well, yeah, the process really exceeded my expectations. You know, I just got done running for mayor where, and I think, you know, I mean, granted I was on the ballot, so I was used to about 10 people showing up to a debate or a candidates night. So my expectation was about there on the community's willingness to come out and recognizing how busy people are, and you know, there's a lot of life happening out in our community. And when we would have meetings, I think all but one had over 50 people at them. And so that kind of passion and interest in educating our kids and what the community can do, and wanting so badly to take part into it and be a part of the solution, was something, frankly, that I did not expect to see in such strong numbers. So I think that was really exciting to me, and really showed up. It was gratifying because it showed that this was something that people had on their mind, and it is the big issue for our community. Now, you know, poverty and parental involvement always run into the conversation, but you know, I always respond back that we are no different than any other urban city in that way. We are very similar to all of our sister and brother communities across the country, and if we're serious about competing in an international market, we have to figure out urban schools, and we have to figure out ways to make sure that our kids graduate, and that they are graduating with skills of critical thinking, that they can go on and be a part of the global market. So the challenges are immense. It's an enormous issue that I don't think any community has really solved, but I think that we need to get in the game, and so I'm happy that the community agrees with that.
That's good. Do you have a sense for how many other cities of comparable size are kind of doing this, so that we will get to compare ours with theirs sometime down the line, or get some of their good ideas?
Right.
You know, that.
Right. When I was deciding to really work on education, I did look at Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati. I think those three communities have played a role in education. Maybe not their mayors in Cincinnati, but definitely their community has. And really wanted to learn what not to do, what steps not to step in to really make a change. And like Mayor Coleman was really great in talking to me about his experience last year on that. So there's definitely every city, and frankly every region. If you're really a region that's playing, you're doing this work. I've been to Louisville, I've been to Chicago, talking to other. Louisville is a great example of a community that has been working on college completion and the collective impact, and then also Cincinnati with their collective impact with Strive. So when in March I went to the Gates Foundation, had an event, and 50 mayors were there. So you know, every community that's really serious about workforce and about development is in this game, and so we have to be there too.
Okay. And you said that the timetable would be sometime for the summer for the report and the action steps to be out, do you think?
So we'll actually probably in August or September. We'll let the committee, you know, they've had 2 meetings. The second meeting was, hey, what are you hearing so far, in the midpoint of the listening sessions. We'll have another meeting in early June and kind of give like, okay, well, here's where we're kind of thinking on the report. Let's get feedback from the committee, and then that way we can work in the summer to get the report and the initiatives right, so we can really go to town on it. I have to say too, the commissioners, Commissioner Mims obviously with his role in education, and Commissioner Williams, who came from the school board, but all the commissioners have been just really, really supportive of this effort, and you know, that's so heartening too, that this isn't something where, you know, I'm just out on my own on it. They have real sense, and really they, in some ways, have a really better understanding on the education issue than I do, and that's been really valuable too.
Oh, well, that's really good. So we can expect to read about it on the city's website.
Oh,
the
of course.
report will be up there.
Of
Okay.
course, and I'm sure we'll get
Yeah,
some
there'll
press
be
about
press.
it.
Of course there
Right.
will be. So, but then we'll be looking to read this. Have you? Are there certain topics in the City of Learners procedure or process that you're going to see in the report? Have certain things just like sprung to the top?
Sure, I think and some of it's been Lori Ward, the superintendent's asked for an African American male initiative. We know, for example, when we look at DPS's scores, that African American males are scoring about 20 points below everybody else, and so that's a population that we really need to work with. And so Commissioner Mims has already agreed to partner with David Lawrence from Dayton Public Schools to work on that effort, and they're already underway. So I think that will definitely be a piece of City of Learners. Pre-K is, definitely an issue, not only for the city but the county, and how we fit into that effort, I think, is going to be key. So those two for sure, I think. And we've actually, and we're hearing a lot about mentorship, and so how do we mentor, and how do we make that. I think there's the mentoring collaborative, but how do we really engage the community in mentoring, I think, is something that might come out of it too. Those are the three things that I'm really hearing a lot about.
Have come up already. Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's all very needed. Very good. Different topic about, but still similar on citizen engagement. The commission recently approved a new strategy for citizen engagement. And I know the process has been underway for a while, but it finally has just received the endorsement. Why don't you give an overview of what the change is for citizen engagement in the City of Dayton?
Sure. I mean, I think the key for us was we recognized that the priority board system was codified through ordinance in 1972, and in 1972, Dayton's population was 250,000. Most of the people in the region lived in the city. And it was under model cities when I think the federal government was giving, even in that time, like $20 million, which is a ton of money. I mean, I'd love to have $20 million from the federal government right now. And so that project and product came from that. And this was also a period of time in the 70s, I don't think we had copy machines then, right? So it was like that blue paper that you kind of mimeograph. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it, right? Some people didn't even have, phones in their house. And so there's a lot how to reach citizens was a very different way than what we reach today. We now fast forward to 2014, we're much flatter as the way we talk to folks is much more direct. We're smaller, both the size of the city and the size of the city organization, city government organization. And so we really had to figure out a way to get that to be more connected. And so we had the neighborhoods, the priority boards, and then the city hall, and we really wanted to just make it neighborhoods and city hall so we could really communicate together. The priority boards will still continue if they choose to be engaged and be a part of an organization. Really, they'll be treated just like neighborhood groups will, but again, it's just about how we make this flatter. And the other piece was in the city ordinance, it said that it made that the way that the city engaged with the community must be priority boards, and it really left neighborhoods out. And we wanted to be able to reach out to neighborhoods as well and make sure that they had a voice inside City Hall as well. So I think this is an exciting time. It also coincides with the work that we're doing with Dayton is Yours, where we are trying to encourage neighbors and neighborhoods to take control of their destiny inside neighborhoods. And so wanted to be able to provide what limited services we had, not on a system, but on an action. And so that's where the new system is coming to place to really show more action in neighborhoods. And coinciding with that, we are restructuring the way that the mayor's office communicates with citizens as well. We recognize, we get a lot of phone calls, obviously, like the Ombudsman, about issues in the community, and we absolutely move on those. But how I, as mayor, and the mayor's office itself gets out in the community, we'll be doing what we call front porch sessions in around 14 neighborhoods across the city. So instead of doing mayor's walks, where it's a bunch of directors and the mayor walking, we'll actually convene conversations on actions that the neighborhood wants to do, and have it be more in that direction than just a walk where there's really no solution conversation. Because it's easier, and we're really working hard to make sure if there's a pothole or there's an empty house, you call a number. But if you want to be a part of a solution that's greater than just that one issue, we want to be able to have those conversations and be able to empower neighborhoods to take action. And then we will be doing, I like to knock on doors. You know, it's one of my favorite activities. I feel like you get really to the directness of the community. I talk to neighborhood leaders quite a bit and go to neighborhood meetings and pieces like that, but I really want to hear what citizens have to say, and I want the directors to hear that. So 5 evenings this summer we'll also be knocking on, you know, doors across the city, just to like have some of the directors in the organization hear what regular citizens, not engaged citizens, you know, because that's really the minority of the community, really hearing. So we're trying to get as direct as possible, which we'll see how it goes.
No, that's good. I wish you luck. I think it's a very good plan. You're right. When you walk through, you're taking down addresses and problems, but you really don't have time to have a conversation. So that'll be a very good plan. What about the social media and kind of the use of that for idea generation? And I know that Dayton's moving to have a program where people engage Dayton, where
Sure.
people can do that online, and I'm sure a certain segment of our population will be participating in that.
Right. So we're seeing a lot with what we call Mind Mixer, and so we've
Yes.
rolled out a new program on that. We recognize that our community is very diverse,
Yes.
and we have to communicate in all forms. So it's not like we're only going to communicate on social media and through Mind Mixer and through Twitter and Facebook. We certainly are doing that now, but it's a layer of communication, just like this tonight. You know, doing a lot of these efforts, so people watching can get the more direct, you know, more traditional form of information. So we do a lot of that. We still do, you know, newsletter work in neighborhoods because, you know, we've done studies, and if people have that newsletter in their hand, they believe they're engaged in their neighborhood.
Yes.
Just because they read the newsletter, right? So making sure that they have those printed in their hands. So, you know, we recognize that we have to have, it's a lot different in communicating, I think, than again 40 years ago where you just went on TV and sent out a newsletter. We have to do it in a lot of different ways. And so we're attempting to do that with less money, frankly, and that's the other challenge.
Right, of course. As Ombudsman, of course, my office speaks with people who are having problems or concerns about various issues. And even though we get complaints on just about every single topic, I know it doesn't surprise you at all that a lot of them have to do with the conditions of neighborhoods and, of course, safety in neighborhoods. So, you know, there's been a lot of attention to demolition of properties recently. But if you could, I mean, these are the things that people feel in their neighborhoods because it's on their block or it's bringing down their house and the way they live in their house when they have a problem, you know, in their neighborhood. So can you talk a little bit about what the city has done with a large amount of demolition, and then yet what's planned ahead?
Sure. So this is a topic that I worked a lot on as city commissioner. I live in the Five Oaks neighborhood, so I'm people say, well, you're in the heart of the issues of foreclosure and predatory lending, and that's definitely the truth. And I've seen it on my block, you know, specifically. So I understand the frustration that citizens have. We have undertaken, and I know you've had on the program, the County Land Bank, and I'm proud of the work that as commissioner, that was one of like 6 bills the state legislature passed, and Greater Ohio, which is a national organization that helped us work that bill, said that it was the Montgomery County, Carolyn Rice, and my support of it, because it's not often you see the city and the county agreeing that we need to take action, that was a big reason why. So having that county support on the land bank has been helpful. And we've been able to, you know, garner a lot of dollars. And just last year, I think we spent around $2.5 million of city money matching and leveraging with state money in the city to take down large apartment complexes, houses that needed to come down. And if this is truly biting an elephant, you know, we're biting the elephant one bite at a time. But you can see a difference from 4 years ago. Speaking as someone that has walked neighborhoods regularly, it is improving. Now there's still challenges and enormous challenges in neighborhoods, and so we're still continuing to attack demolition. We recently received word that we, you know, received $4 million from the TARP dollars, and so $5 million in the county, $4 million will go to Dayton in the city. So that's the progress that when I started this process and said we need demolition money, we were spending maybe $250,000 a year from the city, And folks said, there's no way you're going to get any state or federal dollars for that. And we're seeing that not be the case. And so, again, it's because we've partnered with cities like Buffalo, Rochester, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Detroit, because we're not alone in this issue. And actually, our pain, while enormous when it's on your block, is not as large as some of the other communities. And so if we band together and say this is necessary and we need this to really deal with our antiquated housing stock and deal with redesigning our neighborhoods, which we've done in some places. And those are not fun conversations, frankly, because in 1975, when we had 250,000 people living in the city, that was the neighborhood that a lot of people want, and that's not the world we live in today. But I think it's really important that we're honest with our citizens about what the city can do and the resources they have and what we can do to make sure that those that are taking care of their property, to the best extent that the city can, we will advocate for those folks, because we know when a vacant property has been walked away from a bank-owned or bank-owned property, or someone's not taking care of the property across the street, that's affecting really the person that's in the house, doing right, paying their bills, paying their taxes, cutting their grass. And so we want to be as active as we can be. And I think the city has had a reputation of that, from trying to pass predatory lending bills that the state said wasn't a problem, which is obviously a problem, to the vacant property ordinance that we enlisted last year, and we're looking at that again to see how is it going and what can we do more of. But this is an effort that will take, when we undertook it starting 5 years ago, we said it's most definitely at least a 20-year issue, and so we plan on playing the long ball on it too.
All right, so continuing to demolish then. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but I wanted to get a couple of questions in about your thoughts about our wonderful aquifer and Dayton's great resource there, and any vision that you have for how that might be used in addition to recreation or in our community.
Right. So I think it's one of also, in addition, it's a job creator as well. We have been working, and the city staff has been going to southwestern part of the country where they have no water to say, hey, we have this really great water that's really clean, and have you thought about, software company where they make microchips is a great example, or brewery, or bottling company, have you thought about Dayton? So we're starting those conversations again. I think it's a long-term effort, because energy costs and other costs go into those discussions, but we get to learn then what high water users also are looking for and how we can go after that. So we're doing that. And then further, really protecting the aquifer. The issue with fracking in eastern Ohio is, I'm glad for folks that there's a lot of jobs created on there, but I don't want that wastewater in our aquifer. And so how do we protect the aquifer from the class 2 injection wells coming in? Because we're not going to be fracking in Dayton. We don't have that geology. It's never going to happen. The geology is just not there. But making sure that water is being actually trucked in from New York and Pennsylvania, and protecting our one of the largest single source water systems in Ohio is really important. Right. So you'll see us continue to do work with the Miami Conservancy District, the City of Dayton, to protect that site.
That's good. And then finally, mayors get to marry people.
That's true.
So tell us about your experience with ceremonies.
So we marry folks from 9 to 11 on Fridays. Okay. So from 9 to 11 on my calendar, unless I'm out of town for some reason. That's our marrying time at City Hall. I've married, I think, 13 couples so far.
All right.
And it's really a fun part of the job that you get to celebrate a really big deal in people's lives. Of making the vow of being committed to someone else, and so we've been having a great time with that, and are enjoying our Friday mornings and all the people that come to see us.
Well, that's great. That's great. And you're in lots of pictures, the wedding pictures and the wedding photos. That's fantastic.
We know that Valentine's Day is our big days, and Friday the 13th.
Oh, well, okay. All right. That's a full schedule of those mornings. Absolutely. We're also, is there anything new? You mentioned the bike share program that's coming. Is there anything in addition to that citizens should know about now about plans for biking improvements?
No, we're really excited about the bike share, and then also we're doing a lot of work to connect the city to the trails. And so you see us doing a lot, and we've been using what we call CMAQ dollars. I look at the trails, the 390 plus miles connected trail, which is probably the best in the country, paved trail in our region. is kind of the bike highway, and so we need exit ramps, right, to get to downtown and to get to our neighborhoods. And so we've been doing a lot of work there as well to just make that connection more thoughtful.
Thank you. And then in the few minutes that we have left, I'd just like to ask for any closing thoughts you might have about things I haven't asked you about tonight.
No, Diane, you're a great interviewer.
well,
Thank you so much for having me here tonight, and I appreciate all the work the Ombudsman's office does. You know, when we had tough budget times, we really made sure to try to protect you, and appreciate you being such a great partner, both to us, the city, and the county. So.
And the school board too,
Yeah,
so
and
it's
the
great.
school board, that's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate all the good information, and I'd like to thank the viewers for watching this evening. Good night.